But that's the very reason we're sitting in this in Burbank together with you right here, is a muscle that was started when we noticed like, oh, really normal people like us can actually be about these big, beautiful things. And this isn't reserved for people with tons of money or rock stars or people with tons of influence. Like really normal people like us actually do stuff like this. That has led us on a journey the last 10, 15 years to continually put our hands to things that otherwise really wouldn't have made sense, and even moving to Los Angeles.
All right, today's a big day in the history of Finding Family Podcast, our long history of recording. We're with our really, really good friends, Dave and Morgan Hansow. And you know what? We're live and in person. Well, is it live? We're with them. We're in our living room by a fire. We are alive, but this is an in-person interview. This is a big one, all right? Yep. Hey friends, I'm Chris Bennett, and I'm here with my beautiful wife, Julie.
Hey everyone.
Together, we're going to explore the life-changing power of family.
So pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, and join us on Finding Family.
Family, all in this together. Family, we're taking a chance. Family, like birds of a feather. Family, you got the shoes in dance.
Dave and Morgan, thank you guys so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're gazing into your eyes.
And yes, normally I'm the producer sitting in the corner. So today I get to actually look at you two.
Yeah, I think I should just say, usually we have you stuck, below us, of course, kind of nestled in the corner. But the Finding Family Podcast would not exist. It would not happen without Dave Hansow, and that is the truth. And without our wonderful editor, Will, who's actually to my right now.
Yeah.
Will, you want to say anything?
What up? He's
deep.
Producing the heck out of this
Very
thing.
deep.
You guys are the best. Thanks, Dave, for making sure when you sit behind me in the corner that like my curls, I don't have holes in the back of my head from sleeping and different things.
No worries.
So he makes sure
Gotcha.
my hair's on point.
Dave's endured a lot. We have a small little studio office, and Julie had gas the other week, and
Wow.
Dave had to endure that. I'm just saying.
We like to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Because that will breed vulnerability in your lives.
Dave's eyes were watering most of the time. So.
And we're done. And thank you guys for
Well,
joining us today.
just to set this conversation up a little bit, we've wanted to do this for a while, but the coolest part was, a couple years ago, we had a mutual friend that had texted me and said, hey, you need to meet this incredible family. They just moved to Burbank from Redding. And, I thought, okay, that's cool. We live in Burbank. I don't know a ton of people that families in Burbank. And so, Dave, you and I met. We grabbed coffee, of course. And I knew right away, I was like, this is my guy.
4 hours later. It was like, when's the coffee? And I was like,
Yeah,
where is he?
Ended with a selfie. I look at it every Thursday.
Yeah, if it ends with this, actually, let's be honest. Chris takes selfies with every guy he has coffee with.
I care about people, Julie. I care about people. So anyway, it was so cool because as we got to share our story and kind of leaving everything, moving to California, and then started hearing y'all's stories, like, wow, there's a lot of overlap with what you guys have walked through as a family. And then the coolest part has been really over the last year, our family getting close to your family and our son being close to your son, and just been really, really beautiful to walk with you guys. Our kids go to school together, and we're neighbors in stinking Burbank, California.
We love it. We love it.
So I think it'd be really cool for people to just hear some of the journey you guys have had and just kind of take us back because, we knew bits and pieces of your story from doing life with y'all. But we watched your documentary this week, and we'll talk more about that, called Moving On. And I'm telling you, it made me love you guys more. It made me appreciate you guys more. There were parts of your story that I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And something when you see it, it just really comes to life.
And watching your awesome teenagers, like one of them take their first steps, that was the best. So
yeah,
it was amazing.
Yeah, so bring us into a little bit of y'all's story and journey.
Well, I'll start. And so we started dating, we were 15 years old. All through high school. We got married at 20 and 19. And then
I was the younger one. I was 19.
I was 20. Yes.
And you still are.
You still are younger. But our son was maybe 2 years old. We had a rough pregnancy with him, and we were 20, not a rough pregnancy, a rough delivery, I should say.
Not when he was 2, when he was born.
No. And then I was going to say when he was 2, we started the adoption process, and we were kind of making this a long story short, but we began adopting from Uganda. And through that process, we started working directly with an orphanage. And 6 months went by, 9 months, a year went by. And one day Morgan got off the phone with the orphanage and they said,
well, I'll take it from here. They said we don't know. We don't have any children available. And I was kind of like, what the hell? No children available.
Because there were like 2 million orphans?
2 million orphans. And Uganda is the size of, we're Colorado natives. So we were in Colorado at the time. The size of Colorado or Oregon. And I was like, there's no way. Plus, when you're pregnant, in 9 months you're going to have a baby in your hand or arms, and it had already been a year and a half, and so we had already gone through a Christmas of a stocking that was hanging empty. And my heart was just heavy, and so I was like, I think we're just supposed to move there. And you're like, you're crazy, we own a home.
Move to Uganda is what
I said we should
saying.
just go there. He's like, we have a 2-year-old son. We did. We owned a home. You had a job. You were working for Young Life at the time. With college debt. It just seemed not logical. But I don't know. By the end of the day, you came around.
By the end of the day?
Yeah, literally by the end of that day. Like it scared. I remember really specifically being more scared of what my life would look like if we didn't take that risk. That worried me more. Of life could be fine, and a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, I would look back and really regret that. And so by the end of that day, I'd prayed about it, thought about it, and I said, I think we should go. And within a few months, we were living in Uganda, and we pulled up, and no place to live. Literally that night.
A double stroller.
You didn't know
10
where you were going to
suitcases, a double stroller, didn't know where we were going to live. We found a place right along the Nile River, a little hotel, but again, not a hotel like you think of.
Is it the Nile Inn?
What was it called? I can't remember.
Hotel Triangle.
Hotel Triangle, you're right.
Look it up, TripAdvisor.
And then the first day, with our 2-year-old in tow, we walk into the orphanage, and they show us a girl, and they say, she's available. And honestly, we're going, well, that would have been nice to know before we moved here. But in hindsight, you see God's hand all over it. We see the way this led to the whole story we're about to share of all that we ended up doing. And we ended up working and living and coming back and forth to Uganda over the next 8 years because of this little girl.
Because it's amazing, because the thing that got you there was this little girl. That was the thing that you thought, this is about adopting this little girl, right? And how long did you guys initially think you would be there? Just as long as it took to get the adoption?
Right. Yeah. We just knew we were there for as long as it was going to take. Okay. That was the initial, but we didn't have like a ticket to come home. So we just were like there until we're not going to be there. And our family was like, you're crazy. You're taking our only grandchild to Africa. And at that time there was a civil war in northern Uganda. There with Joseph Kony, and it wasn't.
It seemed like a very logical, safe, comfortable thing to do as a family.
Right.
All right. So you guys get there, you meet Jaden right away, and then she's under your care immediately, or how did that work?
We became in-country foster parents in Uganda. So we took her in. We didn't stay in the hotel. We ended up finding some friends. Because, it's like, you can't just like look up a real estate agent, or, at that time, stuff has developed a lot more since then. This was in 2007. Internet wasn't super reliable either. So, we found some friends downtown that owned an art shop, some local Ugandans, and they're like, yeah, we'll just take you around. We'll walk the streets until we find a house that you can rent. So that's what we did. We just like walked up and down streets looking for houses that looked like they could be rentable or people were working on them. Wow. And we found a house that was partway done. I think like everything was on exterior, but the interior wasn't finished. And so we ended up renting it, and we rented a year in advance. Like we paid a year up front, and he used that money to then finish the inside. So we still had to wait a little bit for it to be finished.
That year advance is what it cost to live for a week in LA. Was that kind of the deal?
Literally.
What would you say, what was the most surprising thing? You're talking about we met somebody, they took us around, and I know our listeners will be able to view this on Patreon, the movie and the documentary, and which is so exciting, and we're referencing it a lot. But what do you I mean, let me say this, after watching it, I took so much away that I was so moved by in the realm of compassion and hospitality. What was the most surprising thing to y'all when you hit the ground about the people of Uganda, considering it's a war-torn country, what's available there, and what changed you the most when you were there?
So in America, especially in the church, we had only been told that, yeah, they may be beautiful people, and we would say that in one breath, but in the next breath, it's, oh, how sad. They're really desperate. There's no running water in a lot of areas, not electricity, all of these things. And so it felt like choosing hope for them was like this honorable thing. Like, oh, I believe there's hope for you. Like, and not only that, but we can be a part of it and we can help do things. And within days, I realized, oh, the vast majority of people we're encountering are much happier than I am on a given. Literally just happier. Yeah. There's funnier people than me. They're happier often. There's more joy.
There's definitely funnier people than me. That's everywhere.
But those are those things that you don't know. Like, you think of them as a project. You think of these places as like places that need fixed, or that because they don't have the things I have, that somehow they need something that right? And we got there, and I think this was the most surprising. I was like, oh, they're just actually real, authentic people who I'm better for being around. They have way more to offer me. I know that feels a little cliche to say, but it really was. I was like, oh, I'm going to grow way more from this than anything I'm ever going to put my hands to here.
And why would you say?
Yeah, why is that?
Why is it?
Well, like, why do they have that joy, or why do they have more? Because they've been through hard stuff. Yeah. I'm like a little baby in comparison with the hardest things I've gone through are like almost laughable, right? By comparison. And again, not to diminish things we've been through, but on average, there's 8 kids each that each of these women we ended up doing a lot of work with were providing for, not all biological. And the reason they're taking them in is because their husbands were killed in a war, or their brother or sister died of AIDS, or all sorts of things. There is a different level to their reality that has produced a level of like authenticity and joy that I just haven't had available.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think the stakes were high. Like, that's just, the stakes are higher there. There's so much out of their control that all they have is being present in that day, and the things in front of them. So there was this value for friendship and for connection, for relationship. Time didn't mean anything. I don't know. People will say that's on African time, but it really was. I remember specifically one day. I was walking alone downtown, probably going to the bank or something, because and I walk at a pretty fast pace, even though I'm short. And I remember this guy stopping me. He's like, madam, like, he's like, why are you walking so fast? Are you up to somewhere to be? And I said, no, I'm just walking back from something. And he said, you need to slow down.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Take it in. Life's beautiful. And you're just like, it just caught me off guard. And that's like, it's a moment that's really etched into my mind about just my propensity to go fast and move from the one thing to the next. And there it was like, you may have a meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning, but you're walking to your meeting and you run into your friend down the street and you guys have a conversation for an hour and you're an hour late to your meeting. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. And there's grace for that, because what matters is relationship. You just say, hey, I was talking to so-and-so. And it's like, so our Western mind of efficiency and time and productivity, like, out the window.
So what did you learn about like family when you look at the family unit there? And I know it's so different. It looks different based on what they're going through, just like here in America. But what is the thing that I'm just curious. I like the word surprised, because I'm like, oh, that surprised me. And then I learned this, and that changed the way we do family now here in America.
Oh, you want to?
Yeah, I would just say you need people. I think we actually need people here. Right. And that's why so many of us feel alone, and so many people feel like, but the reality was like, you literally need people. Yeah. Like, I need my neighbors. I may not know how I'm going to feed my family today. And if I don't have you, like, there's a different level to, I need the people around me. So family and community it took on a whole other, and the kind of hidden surprising thing for us is we ended up needing these people because we were the foreigners, right? Like it may sound like initially, oh, we're going to come and offer something, but it's like, no. I was thinking way too highly of ourselves. Like we were a young family with a 2-year-old and now an infant, and we're in a foreign country and I don't know how things work. I needed. And so we were way more changed by the people we were encountering, and we needed the people we were around. We needed Betty, who you guys met in the documentary, right?
Yes.
Like she may have needed us. We needed her more. She has changed us way more.
I needed Betty. Okay. I watched that and I'm like,
We all need a Betty.
We all needed Betty. Wait till
Betty.
you definitely have to watch it because you need to meet Betty.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that cliche, it takes a village, but really it does. And there was something beautiful about, like, we're so individualistic here and your individual families, and you better not parent my kid. Like, that's not the way we do that. And there it was like, you know, totally different way, but you know, there's mama hidden, you know, whacking a kid with a stick over there, and you're like, whose kid? I don't know. But you just like, it's everybody's job to help raise the village, you know, and the people in the neighborhood. And I think we needed community. We loved communal living. We had this house and we had volunteers who were coming over to volunteer for our organization, and I loved it. I loved just having a house full of people. And so much so that when we ended up coming back to America, we tried to convince some of our friends to like all go in together and buy houses in like a common cul-de-sac and have.
Oh my God, that sounds cultish. I don't want to.
We're all gonna share one. We're gonna all share one lawnmower. We'll each cook one night a week and share meals. Because there's something about that.
And it sounds like they understand humility. Because I think people can define that really differently, but I mean, I watch the movie and then I hear you talk and I'm like, wow, they sound like really humble people.
Humility, and then they also know where their hope comes from. Like we met one of our women. You know, life's hard.
We didn't really share what we did.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would love to.
Sure, otherwise people may not fight now.
Well, we met a group of women who met underneath a tree making paper beaded jewelry. And they were just trying to sell to the local markets at the time, which would be in, you know, like tourists and people who are coming to the orphanage and things like that. But we just had this crazy idea. We're like, well, I mean, it's good work. And we like these women because we had asked if we could come see what they did. And then we said, well, what if we started buying them, but we tweaked the style, kind of made them fashion forward and tried to sell them in America. And so that's what we started doing. We cashed in our 401k, started a nonprofit, and started buying necklaces every week, regardless of how many we sold, because we wanted to create consistent weekly income where there once was none. So that, and there was dignity in that too. I mean, at first we were like, oh, we could like start something and like do a feeding program or a sponsorship. But then it was like, no, all they need is jobs. They're capable, smart women. They just don't have opportunity because a lot of them were refugees in their own country coming down from the north, from the conflict. And so, you know, they didn't need somebody to tell them how to spend their money or, you know, take care of their kids on their behalf. No, they just needed a job, and then they would take care of their kids. So really quickly, just a lot of preconceived narratives, about, you know, white people coming over to, you know, that white savior complex of, I'll even tell you what you need. You know, it got dismantled, and it was like, no, what do you need? Ask questions, listen, what are the needs?
So you started employing some of these women, making the beads, but then this thing began to really grow and take off.
Yeah. On day one, we had 50 employees, and by a year and a half, we had 120 employees that were providing for over 800 kids of those kids. So those kids were all depending on it to
their children.
Their children who were looking to their 120 of our employees. That as a whatever, how old were we? Late 20s, 26, 27. We had 120 employees. That was a pressure, partly because almost every one of our employees were older than us. But the bigger pressure, the thing that that I felt often was there was over 800 kids that were depending on this to eat and go to school.
Wow.
And on the work we were doing. And so you can imagine with that is great purpose. Like I've never felt purpose like that. And to be honest, maybe even since, I have to be real honest, like I don't know if I've ever had a season where I had such like my waking up meant something like really, really tangible for like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that were depending on it to like eat. But yeah, the thing grew really fast, partly because of us, but also probably in spite of us. And so we hired a designer from New York to come over and begin working on designs, packaging, working on websites and marketing in the middle of the night because it's the only time the internet would work in Uganda. All of these like crazy little details to make something like this work. But yes, it grew really quick. And then we started a volunteer program and people started volunteering and moving there and coming alongside us both back in America. And so the thing grew quick. Yes.
So, knowing y'all, watching the doc and seeing the amazing risk you guys took, the really incredible things that happened, that's like, oh man, it's a marvel to hear. But then there's also the reality of it took a toll on you guys. And y'all are pretty open, even in the doc, about how that impacted your marriage. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit of what, all these things happening, what were some of the factors that led to the marriage struggles?
Yeah. To be real honest, there was a ton of pressure on us. Like there was a lot of pressure, and that pressure eventually got to me, where I made some really, really bad decisions in our marriage. And because of that, we almost got a divorce. And you got to think like that's at the height of 120 employees, all these people, 15 employees back in America, Americans, people all from all over the world working for us. So there's a lot at stake. It was, yes, our marriage, but it was also, there's a lot at stake in this. And thank God we had an incredible board, came around us, loved us really well, told us to take time off, and really walked us through that time and that season. And honestly, the documentary you watched was part of a response of coming through that healing of that next year of healing our marriage, beginning to look at the things we were putting our hands to in a different light.
And even just releasing that pressure too, realizing that like there was a repentance of feeling like it was up to us, that it was our responsibility. Because really, ultimately, it was, God was going to take care of him. We could have been the vessel that they used. They, God's plural, in that season. And so, but it was like, it wasn't us. It wasn't our responsibility. And so I think releasing that pressure was incredible as well. Mm-hmm. And it came in a beautiful way too. So we had an organization that is actually a company based in San Diego came to us 2013-14, and we were able to hand off all of our operations. And that's not really talked about. And I think this happened after the movie. But that was beautiful too, because what we're doing is still continuing. They still have jobs, and they had contracts with like Costco and big networks to sell this product. And so it's amazing to see something you started still continuing and providing and taking care of the people that you love.
It just seems like so much in life is we take this one next step that we feel is the right step, and then we walk that path, and then this whole other thing opens up. And I think about y'all's journey of like, oh, we're going to adopt this girl. God opens this amazing door quicker, but then it leads to this whole other part of your story that's still going on. And now even without you guys, people that watch this will get to see, we reference Betty, but you guys still talk to her. She's still a part of your life, and to see the trajectory of her life change, but it changed you guys forever, right?
Well, yeah. So people there changed our perspectives forever. There was a humility that it gave us really quickly, right? Because, well, for so many reasons. I mean, when you try to accomplish things that are larger, you're in charge of a lot. Like it definitely, it definitely humbled us really, really quickly. But also I would say it grew a muscle of risk in us, unlike anything that's ever done. When we noticed that silly people like us, and I really mean that, like we're not that put together, like we're not, us pretty well. There's nothing that special about us. Like,
I don't know.
I think when they see your hair in the doc, they'll be like, wow, God can use anybody. But
that hair was very cool then. But
we hear you. Yes.
But that's the very reason we're sitting in this in Burbank together with you right here, is a muscle that was started when we noticed like, oh, really normal people like us can actually be about these big, beautiful things. And this isn't reserved for people with tons of money or rock stars or people with tons of influence. Like really normal people like us actually do stuff like this. That has led us on a journey the last 10, 15 years to continually put our hands to things that otherwise really wouldn't make sense, and even moving to Los Angeles.
Your dog's trying to escape.
Yeah. Champ's trying to get in here.
No, yeah, I would just say we've just followed the yes. And as we've gotten older, I think taking the risk has gotten harder. But after we handed off operations, we ended up filming 3 seasons of a travel show with our kids where we traveled around the world finding people that were doing great things in their communities. So we took our kids to India and Nicaragua and the city of Detroit. And that was a whole risk journey in itself. Like, we're going to go make a TV show now,
right.
Then we ended up moving to Reading and in what felt like a whim to our families. But we know that feeling when that thing arises and we're like, oh, it's like this invitation. What's next? It's like, we know what that is and we know we better respond.
Have you ever regretted it? Any of those yeses?
No, not a single one. Some of them have been hard, but no, they've all been great. And I see what it's done to our kids. Like, I think we, just raising kids that have seen their parents risk and take chances and follow their dreams, hopefully has empowered them to do the same in their life and giving them a world perspective.
Well, yeah. And again, to go back to like our kids, as you guys know, for your kids and us, they know the good and the bad of us, right? Everybody else knows the highlight reel. Most people outside of this house only know Julie and Chris's highlight reel. They know the best things, right? They go, oh, they've done this and they do that. Like, our kids know like the good and the bad of us. And if people like us who are this silly and messy and all the things that make us humans can actually be about these big things, that the invitation for them to use their life for things like that is all the more. So that example, I think, was the driver for many years for us as we were working in Uganda. It was like, we want our kids not to hate this kind of work. We want to see them be invited, whether it's this kind of work or just anything they're excited about and passionate about, like that there's actually an invitation for normal people like them.
Love that.
And I know we just have a few minutes left, but how have you seen that impact your children who are now teenagers, right? You've got, they're sophomore and junior in high school, right? Yeah, freshmen and juniors.
17 and 15.
Yeah, so all of the experiences, all the yeses, all the risking, all the things. Yeah. What is that? How have you seen that impact them, even though it's been really difficult?
Well, yeah. Well, one of the things that I just, even what I just said was like, hopefully that means that they're invited into their own story, right?
Love that.
In the same way that we've been invited into ours. Secondly, I hope that they are, and I think that they are living this out. Like, a life can be used, not just lived. Like, our lives is something that we actually get to use for something bigger, not just lived out. And then I think maybe just as important as all of this is I hope they're just kind and compassionate kids who will listen more than speak, because we've learned that that's been one of the more important things that we've done.
Yeah. And they've lived in the tension. We've walked the slums of India, like stepping over sewer water and watching kids play in trash and, a trash dump in Nicaragua. And our kids have had to, they've been exposed to the hard and the tension of like the beautiful things and the hard things of people's lives and circumstances. And so I think that as teenagers now, they don't live in a black and white world. They live in a nuanced world of tension where it's they see the beauty and the hardship, and they know that things are possible and things can be done, but that, I don't know, yeah, like you said, that they have compassion and they see other people's perspectives.
I think the cool thing is, I see this with your kids, how close you guys are, and because they've seen the steps you guys have taken, it's almost normalizes risk, because we make risk like, oh, risk is moving to Africa, or risk is taking your family. And risk doesn't have to be this huge thing. Right. But I think I would just love for you guys to kind of close out of what would you say somebody that's like something in their heart they wanted to step toward, like what's a first step to move toward risk and whatever that looks like in their context?
Well, I mean, I'll let you answer, but can I say one thing? I just remember when we were moving to Reading Junction to Reading, we had a family friend. It was our going away party. I've known him since I was born. And I remember him coming up to us and saying like, I'm really so proud of you. And he had like, this is a big like contractor, manly man. 60. Yeah, maybe in his 60s. And he had like tears in his eyes. And he's like, I'm really proud of you guys. There's a lot of things that I thought about doing in this world and I just never took the risk. And I just commend you. And so, I mean, for us, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it could be small things. Like I think he wanted to try something different, but he was in a job that was comfortable and he just never wanted to step away from that. It could be moving out of a town. There's a lot of things, but.
Well, and I know we're running short of time, but can I tell one quick story that I may have told you guys before, but I definitely have not told anybody listening.
Oh, I know. It's not coming.
Morgan knows this story, but it's so this for me specifically is the epitome of what's that look like for people who are going, wait, I know my life is meant for more. I want to do something, but I don't actually know. I remember again sitting in Uganda, a house full of volunteers, waking up at 6 a.m., drinking some coffee on our front porch, pulling out a book from a bookshelf that hundreds of books had been left, and sitting there opening this book. And at that point, we're in charge of 120 staff. There's a house full of volunteers. There's a lot of responsibility on our plates, on our shoulders. And I open up this book, and it's a book that I had read previously years before, but I had loved it. And it was like kind of really impactful for me. And I saw these little cursive handwritten notes. The vast majority of our volunteers were younger, college girls. Those were often the volunteers. And so I'm seeing all these notes in the margins of this book. And there's all these notes of like, I can't wait to go change the world. I can't wait till one day I get to go do these things. And they're all in cursive. And so in my mind, I'm picturing this like 18-year-old girl. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, how cute. If only she knew how freaking hard this is. Like how adorable. That's literally what I'm thinking. How adorable that she thinks changing the world is so easy, or like whatever. So I get to the back and I see this long note that they had written in there. And I get to the end and I realize it was my handwriting from 5 years before. And I'm one of the only men who write in cursive. I still write in cursive. And I realized in that moment that like, you actually have to look really naive to everyone around you. And you may even look naive to the people, to yourself 5 years in advance. And in order to do anything of worth, you have to look really stupid to the people around you, which we did.
So true.
But if you don't actually do that, even looking dumb in front of myself, we may never put our hands to anything. So anyway, that was the epitome for me of me going, oh, give grace on others who are just starting.
Yeah.
But two is give grace on where I am today, because there's probably a good chance that 5 or 10 years from now, I'm going to look at my choices right now of like, oh, how adorable. He thought this. Lighten up a little.
Yep. Love it.
And as the older we get, the harder it gets, because you get, there's more responsibility. You feel it's harder. There's so many more layers, but we just say it's intentional naivety.
Love that.
When you get older, it's like you have to, it's not the stuff of the youth. It's like you have to actually have that intentional naivety to step into risk.
Wow. Well, you guys, we're so thankful to know you. Thanks for being our friends. Thanks for being our neighbors. How cool is that? And partners, we're getting to create and do things together. And for those of you that are our Patreon supporters, we're going to make the movie Moving On, their documentary, available to you. You're going to want to see the whole story. Yes. And I think it's going to inspire you to take some risk in your life. So, Dave and Morgan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Julie.
Yeah, any place you want to direct people to go, especially with the find or anything like that?
Yeah.
Watch how they can follow along.
What's the best way? I mean, you can find us on Instagram at Hansow Family. That's kind of our journey, but on Instagram. But I don't know. Other than that, you can go to thefindshow.com and go see a little bit more
You can't watch it right now.
You can watch some trailers.
You can watch some
And I
trailers.
think if you
but
Google Dave Hansow, you're going to find some bodybuilding pictures of when he was 19. Maybe turn on your filter just to make sure. But
It's true.
And we're here because we're going to do more in the film world. So
yes, you are.
Morgan hasn't aged a bit, so you'll get to see that too.
It's actually true. Kind of weird.
Beautiful as ever. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having
Love
us.
you guys.
We're not done yet. Get that coffee refill because it's time to unpack.
All right. For this portion of the unpacking, you know what we decided to do? We just asked our friends Dave and Morgan, just stick around. Don't leave.
That's right. We want to keep gazing in your eyes, really. So it's,
And I'm freezing, and yet my armpits are sweating. So I don't know how
You've
that...
talked about sweaty pits and gas. Okay. Thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, here's the thing about
Get
Julie.
over chemotherapy. Okay.
Chemotherapy. So Julie's only farted out loud 4 times in our 21 years of marriage. Who's the external farter in this marriage?
Oh,
100% me.
Really?
I may be.
Dave's more of an SBD guy.
What does that mean?
Silent but deadly.
Thank you. All the guys.
I'm thinking about everybody's turning off the podcast right now because
People's
they're
bodies
tuning
are
in.
just different, and I literally just don't have gas very often. I just don't know why.
that means your gut is working well.
I do think, speaking of guts, we should talk about your bodybuilding days because I think I alluded to that. Let's, hey, Mr. Universe, tell us a little bit about that. And can you put your shirt on right now, Tom?
This is getting strange. I did. All through high school, I competed in bodybuilding. I was a weird kid who ate 8 meals a day and worked out twice a day. I'd go before school every day, do cardio, and I would do competitions. And I had a buddy who we worked out with. And I went from my sophomore year weighing 125 pounds. I wrestled, so I was 125 pounds. By my senior year, I weighed 215 pounds.
Wow. Okay, so did Morgan fall in love with you pre-bodybuilder or
because of...
pre.
because of?
And I was not
Okay.
impressed. I was like, why are you wearing a barbell necklace? And I'm like,
whoa.
why don't you walk with your arms down at your side because your lats are so big
Hang
you
on.
can't? And you're like, no,
Wait,
I
he
was
had a
not
barbell
impressed.
necklace?
Yes.
Did he give it to you when he like...
No.
It was like a promise necklace?
No,
promise
but it was lame because he like at passing periods when you wanted to go to the locker to see your boyfriend, he'd be in the car downing a can of tuna real quick.
Didn't you say he smelled like tuna though?
Yeah,
Like his
he
whole-
ate so much tuna that he started to smell like tuna.
Whoa.
Like he woke up in the middle of the night and ate a can of tuna in his room and then would just go back to bed. So and he couldn't hang out or like we couldn't go get ice cream or do anything fun because he had to get home to get to bed.
But your parents loved me because I literally would have her in home by like 9 o'clock because I'm like, why I have to wake up at 2 a.m. and have tuna, and then I have a 5 a.m. I have a 5 or 6 a.m. before school cardio session. So they love me.
This is actually a lot about your relationship and the priceless gem of your marriage that you guys stayed together.
Priceless gem around his neck, the dumbbell
Right.
charm.
I'm just saying the fact that she stayed with you during the tuna days.
But what do we need to know about Morgan? Because Morgan, weren't you like valedictorian? Is this true?
I was not valedictorian, but I was senior class president. And I have 4.1 GPA. I was very an
Homecoming
achiever.
queen with a bad grade point. That was me.
I lost homecoming present in a runoff to Grace Chen, but the runoff was on Take Your Daughter to Work Day, and I'm convinced I didn't get the girl vote. I would have won. And for my speech... Oh, did I just hijack this?
interrupted Morgan.
Well,
No, you're
this is
good.
really important.
We just,
No,
we're
you're
making
good.
this about
Keep
us
going.
right now.
I
We're getting right about
literally ran for class president because I wanted to give a speech at graduation. I was like literally, and my speech, they showed it through all the TVs in the school, my speech, and it was roses are red, violets are blue. Vote Chris Bennett for student body president, please. I cannot believe I did not win. I cannot believe it. Anyway, did you give a speech at graduation?
yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Can you
I gave
do
a
it?
speech and I read all the names of my classmates as they came and got their diplomas.
I did
amazing.
not get that opportunity. I
It
was
was
not
because
even
your
close.
necklace was weighing you down.
I'm Dave.
So by the time I was a junior in high school, I placed second in the Junior Olympics. So it was like I had gone from it wasn't just like a fun little nice thing. Like it got fairly serious, and I was flying around the country to like different competitions. And
Shaving everything, oiling up, doing little dance routines.
Parental advisory.
dance routines. She is making a mockery of my life's work right now. A mockery. She's the only high school girl who didn't think it was cool that I had like abs and was tanned. She had zero, and she
Might have
had
been the tuna.
Tan?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you had, but I would
literally.
literally have to go to a tanning booth because you had to have a consistent tan when you go to compete. It was, believe me, I'm well aware of the ridiculousness of it, and it was a big deal.
I went to the Junior Olympics and placed bronze. I did.
And what?
What?
For the 400 meters
Whoa!
as a sixth grader.
We're with Olympians right now.
And then everybody caught up to me in high school, and
In third grade, I got second place in the kitten trot at Terrace Elementary. It's fine. It's fine.
trot. Nobody has ever heard of that.
We had the turkey trot at Thanksgiving. Is this
I might have made up the
equivalent?
kitten trot, but
It's because he had like 5 cats growing up, and they were all named after his little girlfriends in like second grade, third grade.
I told you not to bring that up.
And 3 of them were named Ashley. It's so weird. It's so weird.
I want to Crayola coloring
This is a great
contest.
unpacking. Are y'all loving this? Do we have anybody still listening?
Oh, if so,
Anybody?
I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, you've got a lot of history
But dude,
there.
I think tell people about what you're doing in LA, why you came here, what
Yeah.
you guys are working on.
Well, moving on, which you guys can watch on Patreon, was our first, the moment it began to win awards and festivals and then got distribution. It played on TV in 5 other countries. We were getting all these letters from people and writing us and going like, hey, I started organizations because of this. We adopted because, and we're like, oh, media actually, when it's done well, like has like real impact in the world. It's not just like a nice movie. It's like, this was moving people to go do things. So I think for us, moving to LA to begin working on larger projects, whether it's documentary or narrative films or TV shows or whatever it is, our hope is that the things we create inspire people to live differently. And I think that is why we're here.
Well, I love what you guys have done your whole life, but even watching you guys come here, you guys just jump in. You've been extras on movie sets. You've been, worked in some production roles and films, and you guys are just humble and you're learners and you just figure stuff out, but you're so gifted at what you do. So I think I'm so excited to see what comes of it, because I think it's going to be bigger than you think. I think you guys are going to do things that are beyond anything you ever dreamed of in the city. And we've told you, man, you're in the right place at the right time. We're just glad to know you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. I appreciate that.
I mean, I think. Did you have something?
no, I was just saying, I agree.
Yeah, I think when you guys mention like allowing your kids the freedom to write their own story in the context of your life and your journey and all the things that you guys have done, I think that I just think that's a big takeaway. I think that not just in our families and with our children, but in what we create is what we're creating, whether that's starting a business, whether that's doing a documentary, making a movie, whatever it might be. Are we giving space for people's minds and hearts to go, wow, there's something that I can create that's all my own, whether that's how I live or something literal. So, yeah.
Well, and it's been fun too to watch our kids become creatives. Like, you heard, I mean, we came from the sports world, and, I was on the golf team and the basketball team in high school, and had done sports my whole life. And so, I mean, if you would have told me, hey, down the road, you're going to be a filmmaker, and, I would have probably laughed at that. But just saying yes and figuring out how to do something and how to do it something well. I mean, I think hopefully you saw that with Moving On, we really cared about cinematic excellence and telling a story in a way that, isn't typically reserved for these types of stories. We had an amazing film crew that have become friends of ours for like the last 12 years that we love. But just in doing all that too, we've watched our kids find their niche in the creative world. And I think like our journey into Reading for that season was part of our kids finding the arts. I think if we would have stayed in Colorado, there probably wasn't going to be the space for them to find that because it wasn't valued in like a rural Colorado. So watching our son do musicals and start hip hop dancing, and the same for our daughter taking singing lessons and doing acting, and our kids attending an acting school. It's like we've seen them come alive, and it's really been awesome.
I think it's been our favorite thing of moving here. When we came to LA, we had an idea of why we were coming. It wasn't like we just came blindly, but we came like you guys, where it's like dreams, ambitions. that weren't just about me and Julie. It was about our kids. And that's been the coolest part, is to see that with you guys, where it's like open up, it's this whole, it's open up this thing for your kids to step into these parts of them that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. You know, like all of our kids being in this culture, being around creatives has awakened something in them. And that's been really, really fulfilling.
Right. Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, like the first film set Asher walked onto was with Steven Spielberg.
It's crazy.
And Michelle Williams and Seth Rogen. Yeah. And then Jaden was on a film set with Jordan Peele.
So cool.
And as like, yeah, so just watching them step into the greatness. And it's also going back to the upbringing too. I always think about this. I don't think it's clicked for our kids yet, like how unique of an upbringing they've had. Yeah. Like sometimes I want to be like, hey, do you understand that what you've done? Like you had an incredible gift. You guys have traveled the world. Not many kids have done this thing, you know? Of course I never say that to them because that would seem rude, but like, you know,
don't you know what we've done for you?
At some point, I think it's going to hit them as young adults, hopefully, that they're going to reflect on their upbringing and realize like, what a gift they've had and how it shaped them. You know, I understand that they are just teenagers and their prefrontal cortex is still growing, you know, but
You sure you want valedictorian? It's a big word.
I was going to say the front of your brain, the back of your brain. That's what I say.
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
The left, the right.
Well, maybe we'll just keep unpacking off line here. But
something else, Dave?
No, I don't. I'm just agreeing. This was great. We had
You guys
fun.
are awesome.
Thank you for chatting with us. We love you guys. We're inspired by your story, as you guys know.
Thanks, brother. All right, we'll do it again.
All right.
Thanks for joining us on the...
Should we sing this one out?
I think Will should say it. Will, you want to say it?
Finding Family Podcast.
Bam.
Thank you so much for listening today. The best way you can help us get this message of family out to the world is by taking a minute to subscribe, leave a rating and review, and please share. You can also visit our site, findingfamilypodcast.com, and follow us on Instagram to stay connected.
And one more thing. Have you ever listened to an episode and found yourself wanting to hear more from our guests, or thought, man, I'd sure love to get more connected with Chris and Julie? I know you have. If so, you can become a member of our Finding Family Patreon and receive exclusive content and ways to interact with us and our community. Just go to findingfamilypodcast.com and subscribe.
This episode was produced by Dave Hansow and edited by Will Cotterall and is a production of Welcome Home Entertainment. Original music written and performed by Drew Holcomb.